Checking audio 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. All right, everyone, I'm showing 7 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. If you'd all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Molly, if you could help me with roll call, please.
Yep, sure. Alderperson Henry? Here. Alderperson Schaefer?
Here.
Alderperson Valdy?
Here.
Alderperson Wilkin?
Here.
Alderperson Grimmer?
Here.
Alderperson Price?
Here.
Alderperson Eicher?
Here.
Administrator Hafner?
Here.
Mayor Atwell?
Present. All right, we'll move on to number 4, the minutes. Is there a motion or any corrections?
Move to approve the minutes of March 18th.
Second.
Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right, number 5, City of Delafield citizens' comments. Come on up.
There's a one for each person, if you could just pass them down. Good evening, my name is.
You're going to want a green light there, so push that button.
Right good?
There you go.
Thank you. Is that something new?
It is new.
Testing.
It's been a long time since we've seen
Isn't
you.
that a good thing?
It is. Could be.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is William Restock. I live at 4527 Vettleson Road. My wife and I have raised 4 children there, and we've lived there 35 years. I have 2 rather brief comments tonight. The first one has to do with something that's not on the agenda, and that's what the handout is. Let me give you, here's the thing. The Wisconsin legislature has updated their shared revenue formula. And Cindy Duco, my state representative, and I assume yours, but I don't know where the borders all are. So Cindy Duco sends out mailings to me, or to everyone. It's not even addressed to me, it's like postal customer. And I got this mailing on Wednesday, March 13th. And the reason I'm bringing it up tonight is part of what she had to say. And I'm just going to quick quote. It says, one of the biggest wins for Wisconsin was the updated shared revenue formula. All of our communities received at least a 200% increase without raising taxes. And it shows Delafield receiving a 429% increase. So I sent an email to Cindy Duco for more information. And she replied to me then, and that's what I gave you on the handout. She replied to me on March 18th. And I just want to read 1 or 2 sentences. It's the second paragraph that I want to talk about. It says, the town of Delafield received, I want to be clear, the town of Delafield received $210,352. So that's not important. The city of Delafield received an additional $188,350 for a combined increase of 429%. But if you continue to read, it says local governments are able to use this supplemental aid for emergency services, including police, fire, and/or EMS. So that's what I'm here to talk about. I want to ask you to please consider using that $188,000 or thereabouts. I'm sure that's not a real number. I don't know the exact number. That's her number, though. State representatives, that's her number. There's $188,000 coming into the city that we didn't plan on. And I'm going to tell you that $450 fire EMS fee was a tremendous burden to myself and my neighbors. And here's an opportunity where $188,000 that nobody knew was coming is coming to the city of Delafield, and I think it would be inexcusable not to use that money specifically to relieve the burden of that $450 fee. Because if I understand correctly, when the $450 fee was passed by the voters, you have the right to change that level year to year. So if you have $188,000 extra dollars this year, I would expect my fee next year to be whatever that would be, $200 or $250. And the last thing I want to say about that is I just did some math, and if you take $188,350 and divide it by $450, that's what the average resident was asked to pay. that means that would cover 418 households here in Delafield. That's how big a number this 188,000 is. Now, I'm certain there's more than 418 households in Delafield, so it's not going to wipe out our burden, but it sure should cut it a lot. So I'm asking you, please, not tonight, but someone's got to be a catalyst to start talking about this. I mean, I wish I was sitting in your chair so I could do that, but since I'm not sitting in your chair, I'm begging you to please bring this up in the future. So that's what I have about that. And the next thing is really quite brief, and this pertains to the actual new business part of your agenda tonight, item number 10C, where it says the city of Delafield has an intent to create a railroad quiet zone for 1 mile, including the Vettleson Road crossing. Well, as I stated to you like 3 minutes ago, I've lived on Vettleson Road for 35 years. I absolutely adore the train whistle. I don't know if anyone went door to door and even asked people how they feel about the whistle. There are so many more things in our neighborhood that could be dealt with than a train crossing whistle. And if I tried to do some research and I couldn't get a good solid number that I could say to you honestly, I think those railroad tracks have been there about 150 years. So my comment would be, if there's someone out there who doesn't like the train whistle, then why? They sure as heck didn't buy 150 years ago, so what's the problem here? So I really think there's bigger issues. I'll tell you one real quick, and this will be my last thing. On Vettleson Road, because of the Heritage Senior Living Center in the shopping center there, I don't know, and well, you guys could look it up. I bet we get 1 or 2 ambulance calls a day with 2 sirens blowing, and that's more of a burden to me than a train whistle. And so I think it might be, I might have missed my opportunity to fight this, but it says the exact wording says discussion and possible action. So if it's not too late, don't do it. I don't really see the value. I absolutely adore the train whistle. So thank you for listening. 2 other comments. Mayor, thank you for your years of service. Tim, good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the comments. Always appreciated. All righty. Anybody else? Come on up.
Looks like I already have the green light. So, my name is Pat Barwig. My address is 1832 West Shore Drive in the city of Delafield. And I'm here on behalf of the Delafield Arts Foundation Board to thank Mr. Hafner for getting that contract signed so that we can proceed with filling out the grants once we know how much the stage would potentially cost, filling out the grant proposals, and getting the money to get started to build this fabulous new stage that we're looking to build. Also, our summer concert program is coming along. We're always looking for donations to help support the concerts. We're doing pretty well on the building side, but we're not doing very well on the concert side. If anybody wants to help support the concerts, we'd love that. And I don't see Mary Daniel here, so just, never mind. I don't want to steal your thunder. Never mind. Bye.
All right, is there anybody else that would like to make a comment? All right, seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed. The consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, passes. Okay, we'll move on to number 7, reports of committees and commission reports, licenses.
Yep, so the first one here is a change of agent. Standard, the gentleman has passed his background from the PD and has left the company. So they're requesting that we approve their replacement agent.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes.
All right, this next one here is for Voodoo. This is going in at 705 Genesee Street. The business plan of operation has been approved by the Plan Commission. The applicant is hoping for a full liquor license, but in the interim is requesting approval for the Class B beer and Class C wine licenses. And just before, sorry to cut you off, Danielle. The one thing is the caveat would be to, as part of the motion, issuance should be pending the applicant receiving an occupancy permit as the establishment hasn't occurred. So we can grant the license, but we don't want to issue them the license until their building is ready to go and approved by the health department.
I'll move to approve the applicant pending their receival of an occupancy permit. Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right, we'll move on to the Planning Commission. Mr. Eicher.
Yeah, we have one of many ordinance revisions that we've been working on over the past year plus. This one has to do with specifications of what's allowed not in a boathouse. This is kind of a long time coming, but really what it does is it eliminates a bunch of ambiguity about all sorts of fixtures, features, power, bathrooms, stuff that you can and can't have in a boathouse. And this takes a burden off of staff and the Plan Commission for kind of speculating and puts it down in black and white. So this was unanimously approved by the Plan Commission after a couple different revisions. So I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance number 829 amendment.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I see a hand.
I have a couple of questions. I understand the motivation for this was to deal with any concerns that a boathouse could be used for habitation, which sounds like a great thing to head off. I think they hit the nail on the head with a few points here. Boathouse must be used exclusively for boat and marine items, may not be used for human habitation. Doesn't get any more direct than that. Must contain a garage door, no bathroom, heat or AC, no interior walls. That pretty well covers it. There's a couple of extra new requirements in there that I think might go beyond our intentions. Electrical supply maximum limit. If you look at most building codes, there's minimum limits for electrical supply because you don't want somebody to overload. It's fire hazard, right? We're limiting to one 110 volt, 20 amp circuit. I toured several boathouses and they were all 220 carriage. You know, to get your boat in, you need a carriage and rail system. Every one I saw was a 220 volt. I did some research online, and if you have a smaller boat, you can get one that'll run on 110, but it needs to be a dedicated 20 amp circuit. So if somebody wants to put a light in their boathouse or an outlet or a garage door opener, they'd be overloading the circuit. So let's not require, it feels like we might be tempting a safety hazard. Second point, garage door, must have a garage door. Good. Obviously, you need to get a boat in and out of the thing. Then there's a statement about the style of door, and I just don't think our citizens need their government to choose their home decor. Obviously, garage doors come in a variety of styles. We have carriage doors that swing. We have sliding barn doors. The newest style, you see a lot of these frosted glass doors. To require the 4-panel slab plywood overhead door, I think we picked the ugliest door. If somebody wants to spend the money for more beautiful doors, let's not require ugly. And there's a limit on windows here. Windows are good. Natural light's good, saves energy. You see in and out, you keep an eye on the kids, you keep an eye on the weather. And there's no better place to grow mold than in a dark, damp boathouse. So daylight's good. And if we're concerned about the way somebody's using a boathouse, I think if they put big windows on their boathouse, you can be pretty certain they're not using it for an illegal activity. because we can see in and keep an eye on them. If I wanted to use it for habitation, I wouldn't put a big glass door on it. The third item is, I get the HVAC, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning. We don't want heat, we don't want air conditioning, but we also say ventilation not allowed. I think, again, a dark, damp boathouse with gasoline inside of it, ventilation, we shouldn't go as far as to say ventilation not allowed. So I would move to amend this to send back to Plan Commission to revisit Section 5225E, just to remove the word ventilation from things that aren't allowed, and to remove electrical supply is limited to a single 110 20 amp circuit, to, not tempt a safety hazard, and also revisit the reference to style of doors in Section 5225A, just simply removing the phrase, which shall consist of an overhead retractable door with no more than 25% windows.
So we have a motion and a second to pass it as is, and you're bringing that up as discussion.
As an amendment, a proposed amendment to the.
Yeah, so if, it would be up to them to decide whether they want to make those choices or not.
Yeah.
But I can give you some feedback on the
Separate.
110. I understand, I hear your points that you're making. But remember, this was unanimously passed by the Lake Welfare Committee, and it was unanimously passed by the Planning Commission. And the overriding thing here is that these are used for boat and boat storage and boat equipment. And some of these other amenities that tend to get put in over time, they're trying to make it so that they're more difficult to happen. For example, you can't put an oven or kitchen type appliances on a 110 line, you need a 220. Now I imagine that if somebody has an internal boat lift that they would use where they need some more electrical power, that could be a concern, I agree with you, but I think it's pretty rare. And I think if we had an applicant that wanted to do that, there might be a potential for additional wordsmithing down the road to try to accommodate that. The overhead door issue, I think, is really clear. The only reason you need anything other than what is in the current code right now is to use it for some other purpose. That's the intent of the Lake Welfare Committee, and that's the way the Planning Commission saw it. So we can debate it, but particularly the Lake Welfare Committee has lived this experience with a number of boathouses, and again, it was their recommendation. And then on ventilation, I don't know what exactly kind of ventilation you'd be referring to, but you can open up the garage door and the side door and you can get all the ventilation that you need in there. The purpose of the ventilation is not to put air conditioning and heat to make it habitable, which is the broader intent of the purpose. So that's the logic behind why it's written the way it is.
Yeah, heat, air conditioning, and ventilation are all called out separately. I get heat and air conditioning, I don't understand ventilation. And the electrical requirement means you can't put a boat in there unless you're cranking it in by hand, because the carriage and rail system requires more power than that. So, and even if you could, no lights, no garage door opener, unless you overload the circuit. Again, building codes don't limit, the limits are on the low end. There's the minimum requirements for safety reasons.
Mark, from a comment on the lifts, in Lake Welfare, I haven't seen a boat application in a boathouse that had a rail system for years. They're simply storage buildings. Somebody actually had one when they came to the Lake Welfare to get that approved, and they were putting in a rail system. I don't think our committee would have any issues saying, okay, we'll give you a variance to get the 220 for your motor drive. But we haven't seen one like that in a long, long time.
We shouldn't have to have a variance to enable somebody to store a boat in a boathouse. Sorry.
Well, again, you only need that if you have a rail system.
How else do you get your boat in there? Unless it's a wet boathouse, and that's not allowed.
people aren't putting their boats in there. They're using them for storage, or canoes and kayaks and things like that, but I haven't seen many actually boats going on for quite some time. I can't tell you the exact time, but it's been a while.
I look at 3 of them on my street, and they'll have boats in them.
I know there are a lot on the lake that have been there originally, but as far as the new ones coming in and the ones that we've had the issues with, did not have that.
Yeah, 120 amp circuit's not a lot. You're tempting, in fact, I think garage door openers require a dedicated circuit. So we're saying if you want a boat rail or you want a garage door opener, you can't have lights. Can't have an outlet in there. Unless you overload the circuit. I don't see that allowing more electricity in there is, I don't see the downside. I really don't. I don't see the downside to windows or going with a more attractive, modern style door. We've covered the important things here. No habitation, no bathroom, no heat, used exclusively for boat and marine items.
Yeah, I think, Mark,
The only way you use it for something else and hide it is not putting windows in it.
I think if an interior boat lift that you're talking about becomes a concern, I'll agree with Paul. I'm having a hard time remembering the last time I saw a boathouse, a new boathouse being built that was installing one of those. That if and when that circumstance came up, as Paul said, I'm quite sure the Lake Welfare Committee, either through the variance process or through amending the code, would try to find accommodation for that. But again, it's been a long time since we've seen anybody even, ask for one. So, and you could have put one in at any time in the past. It's just very uncommon, certainly in recent years.
Same thing goes for garage door opener. You've fully loaded is a dedicated circuit. You have no power for anything else unless you overload that circuit.
Yeah, I'm not the electrician, so I can't speak to that. I know that the building inspector thought a 110 line would be sufficient to run the normal things that he was aware of in a boathouse.
Other than a boat lift, it is, but 20 amps not sufficient.
And I feel like
It's
this is
just not.
something that has been reviewed extensively, and if this were to be an issue with somebody wanting to, I feel like it would come back to us, and hey, this isn't, I mean, if this has been what they're recommending based on their experience, I think this is probably sufficient, and if somebody comes back to us with evidence that this isn't sufficient, I mean, I'm not seeing, I'm not an electrician either, so I'm having to rely on the people who've done the research on this, so that's my...
I'm giving you the evidence.
Scott's, our building inspector's recommendation was based off of the assumption that the vast majority of boathouses do not use them for boats, correct?
Correct, and he's basing his assumption, and to my recollection, he's the one that suggested the 110 change as a way to help control the other things that can be put on the 220 line that are causing the heartache. It was his suggestion to do that.
And
To
if
the
there
best
were
of
a
my
situation that did come forward, then we would have
For
the
a real
normal.
boat purpose, I'm quite sure the Lake Welfare Committee would suggest a code amendment, whatever it might be, because obviously if there's something that people want people to store their boats in there, right? We just don't see it very often. They put in boat lifts.
We're essentially prohibiting it.
I would suggest that there are some circumstances where a 220 might be appropriate, that get addressed in the code now, where it says, indicates who has the authority to grant an exception, if it's the Lake Welfare Committee, and under what circumstances they would. That would be a lot cleaner path than to come back for a code rewrite or go down the path of a variance.
And even with 110, 20 amp circuits, not going to run what you probably need in a boathouse. And
would
can
tend to-
anybody tell me why we want to dictate a specific style of door? Why would we do that?
It's dictating architectural elements is all over our planning code. It's everywhere.
It's the ugliest style of door. In fact, we got assurances from one of the developers that his garage doors wouldn't face the street, because that's the ugliest part of the building, and that's what we're going to see on our lake.
I've
Let
answered the
people
question.
dress it up if they want to.
Answer the question of why, it's not unusual is my response. I'm not weighing in on what's attractive. This is,
Not sure why Plan Commission.
I had a hard time, on Plan Commission when this came to us, this was something that had been deliberated for quite some time on lake welfare. And I have a hard time thinking that their efforts were not specifically targeting their goal and their purview, which is to oversee boathouses on the lake. So the Plan Commission, along with, took that recommendation along with our building inspector who was here during the meeting. Some of the issues you brought up regarding the electrical as well as ventilation. I'm not sure if this reads that the ventilation question as it relates to those types of amenities that are found in a primary residence, or if that's a list. It sounds like ventilation isn't, so that one doesn't make sense to me as far as ventilation, but in hindsight, but
And I'm not suggesting that none of this is, should never be passed. I think a few of these points need to be revisited by the Plan Commission. That's all. And consider the actual impact.
the door
of
and the
what we're
windows were.
requiring.
Those were well discussed. So the door and the windows were. And the type and load of the electrical was something that was discussed, not in the context of what power was required for certain, to get a mastercraft or something up onto a rail system into a boathouse. But disagree a little bit with Tom and say it might be a lighter load to a lighter lift to pass with the to move this forward with the existing language that's here and have a case heard to change it, going back to a less restrictive ordinance later. And I know that's usually not how things work, but this had been aired out in public discussion at the Lake Welfare Committee and then at the Plan Committee, and now we're here, and you're bringing up a topic that I don't believe would not have been discussed. It's just new to the council based on those different approval processes.
I was at the Plan Commission meeting.
And I don't recall you bringing this up.
I wasn't up here.
There's citizens' comments there too. I'm just saying there's. So at this point, I don't intend to change the motion that I made. If it's voted down, it will go back to the Plan Commission. But if it's passed, something different than this that is desired would have to start with Lake Welfare and go through the Plan Commission.
And my amendment's just suggesting it goes back to them for review of those particular items.
That's not an
And come
amendment.
back here.
That's not an amendment, but anyways,
Okay.
it's a point of order. But it would have to, there's a motion on the floor that either has to go up or down or amended, and I'm not wanting to amend it.
Okay. So if it fails, it goes back to them for further review.
Or not at all, yeah, or it's dead.
All right, is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we will move on
All right. I do not have anything else for the Plan Commission. Our next meeting is at the end of this month, and on Wednesday. And look at the, sign up for Notify Me if you want to get notified of what that agenda is, or go on our website the week before.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, Lake Welfare Committee, Mr. Price.
Yeah, the Lake Welfare met last Wednesday. The three main issues that we talked about was a complaint from a neighbor from a mud runoff getting into the lake right next to the rail home that came down from the Yagawika Heights subdivision. Tom was contacted. I think, Tom, you've talked to contractors, and I think that's been taken care of. Is that correct, Tom? I drove through there today, and it looks like all the fences were up and stuff like that, so,
The situation is greatly improved, but it's not quite perfect yet.
okay.
Still working on it.
Still working on that, okay. The other thing we talked about was egg oiling was approved again, and that will be done sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The main item we talked about for passing was discussing guidelines for wake surfing, not rules, but just guidelines for use on our lake. In the packet, you can see a map and the guidelines that we'd like to publish that in our newspaper in the next quarter, and then maybe make a sign down at the park, so people who are launching their boats and using that boat can see where on the lake that should be best used. You can see that the red mist in the middle of the lake there shows what would be a safe area, be away from shallow areas, away from boat launches, away from the park. We're just trying to find a way to dye the water so it stays red, but other than that, that'd be worked out just fine. So, Tom, you felt it was best that the plan or the council tonight would view what we're talking about. It's not necessarily a law, it's just a guideline. But we wanted the council to see what we were talking about as a guideline. So if you think a motion is due, we could do that, or just say we discuss it in the minutes, whatever you feel is most appropriate.
Yeah, I thought a motion would be appropriate, just confirming that the council is on board with the guidelines that the Lake Welfare Committee is recommending, rather than finding that out after they're published.
Right, okay, that sounds fine then. Thank you.
I think it's great work by the Lake Welfare Committee. I know you shared this example at the annual Lake Awareness meeting.
Right.
I know we had wakeboarder, boat owners there. We had kayak. It was a very eclectic group on both sides of this issue. And there's a lot of talk going on in newspapers and things like that and at the government level. And I think the Lake Welfare Committee is suggesting a reasonable action for today, right? That this is an education process, and that's, in my opinion, the best way to deal with a lot of lake issues is to try to educate people on them. So I think this is a great first step and helps us move forward where other people continue to debate and not seem to get anything done. This greatly helps, I think, the situation. And if somebody chooses to make a motion, I would encourage that motion include a statement, something along the lines where we suggest the police patrol, when they're out there on the lake and doing safety stops and normal stops that they would make, that they share this guideline with people on the lake, just as I'm sure the Lake Welfare, you're going to do it in a communicator. I'm sure you'll be doing other things to try to communicate it. But I think the police department could play a key role in helping to facilitate the education. Not issuing a ticket or anything, just suggestive.
Okay.
I'll move to approve these guidelines for use in educating the public, to be posted and communicated wherever we can, and to be given to the police as an educational tool.
Okay, second.
Right, is there any discussion?
I think this is a good start. I think we need more, but this is a great way to get something done quickly. So let's not stop here.
All right. Hearing no more discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to Park and Rec. Mr. Schaefer.
No meeting, no report.
Okey dokey. Public Works, Mr. Grimmer.
No meeting, no report. Next meeting is May 1st, I believe. Yes.
All right, Delahart, Mr. Iker.
Well, I don't see Rob here, but the update is from him. I don't know if he was going to be here, but we've got Delahart has a new website. It's one of the things Rob took on as the new general manager, and that was just, there's a lot of things that we need to communicate as a wastewater utility, and one of them is just what we're all about, what our initiatives are, the issues. We do put articles in the communicator about once a year. But he thought more of a easy presence online would do. This is relatively inexpensive way to get the word out, so check out our website. Oh, once you know it, I don't have it off the top of my head, so I'll chime in a few minutes. But that's a big update, and we're going through the budgeting process right now, and we're finishing up a big update. And Rob, I know, is going to come in a future meeting to give us a summary of how that gets concluded. But I'll say check out our website for updates, and I'll give you that site in a second. So that's all I have for Delahart.
It's delhartwpcc.com.
Oh,
It's very
it's in the
pretty.
packet?
It's
Okay.
in the packet of
Never
the
mind.
works.
It's buried in there, yeah.
The link
I'm
is
still
live.
learning. Okay.
It's a nice, slick site. It's really well laid out.
Yeah, but it's a good way to get the word out about what we're all about. So, thank you, Mark.
And just to clarify, Rob sent an email asking to share the info, so that's why I put it in the packet. I wanted to try to get that info out for him.
Okay, yeah, I'm not saying he's unexcused. That's all I have for Delahart.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. All right, Police Commission, Ms. Faldy.
No meeting, no report.
Okey dokey. Library Board, Ms. Henry.
Yes, we met last Tuesday, and we were finishing up discussing updates to the bylaws, and that's now been sent, approved pending legal review of it. And then a couple fun updates. We had, the library gave out over 1,000 Eclipse glasses to the community. And our next fundraising event is April 30th at Panera from 4 to 8, and there is a promo code to have them donate to the library. So don't miss that.
1,000
Over
glasses.
1,000
Wow.
glasses, yeah.
Cool.
So it's very fun.
Thank you very much. Move on to Zone Boarding Appeals, Ms. Faldy.
No meeting, no report.
Okay. All right, J, Promotion and Tourism Commission, Mr. Schaefer.
There was a meeting, but nothing significant to report.
Okay. We'll move on to Lake Country Fire and Rescue Commission. I'll refer you to their website. Lake Country Fire and Rescue Board, Mr. Grimmer.
No meeting, no report. Next meeting is this Wednesday at our Delafield hometown station, 5 p.m.
Thank you very much. And Deer Management Committee, Mr. Vulcan.
We haven't had a meeting since the last council meeting. Tomorrow night's meeting has been canceled due to lack of a quorum, but the committee is planning to get together on April 28th at the Lois Jensen area to move one of the deer stands. That's all we have for now.
Great, thank you very much. And I apologize, but before we publish that map, you just reminded me, I was going to say this and I forgot. The park at the top of the map doesn't say Lois Jensen, it says Dickton Park, so we probably want to get that corrected. Just
That's Neshota's Park.
That's, yeah.
It's the Lois Jensen Park, it's our park
No,
they have
there's Dickton-
highlighted. We-
I know.
Just a little word
They're next to
correction
each other.
there.
They're next to each other, that's right.
Yeah, we
I
want,
don't know who
give
put
Lois some
that
credit.
together, but.
Okay.
8, unfinished business. A, continuation of the discussion regarding downtown traffic issues and intersection control, including discussion with Art Bauman, traffic operations engineer and longtime member of the Public Works Committee. Come on up, Art. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you, Art.
Thanks, Art.
Tom, you want to kick us off on this?
Yeah, so we had this discussion regarding downtown traffic at the last council meeting, and the council had asked for it to be put back on this agenda and to invite Art to add to the discussion, and so that's where we're at.
Can I have you give your name and address?
Sure. Art Bauman, 917 Broken Bow Court.
Sounds good. Floor is yours.
Well, at the request of Alderman Price, I did a review of the traffic analyses that were done for the traffic studies for the Hendricks development, the Grain, as well as for the two residential developments to the north. As part of that, I did end up kind of merging the two traffic studies together because the study that was done for the houses to the north used a different trip generation for the Grain buildings that was lower than what was approved in the study that was done for the project originally, the Grain project originally. So that slightly increased the volumes. I was not aware of at the time they did the analysis that Tom informed me after, though, that the number of houses that were approved for the subdivisions to the north were slightly less than what was included in the traffic study. So the numbers are slightly higher, would be for the through traffic volumes on Genesee Street, but we're probably talking 5 to 10 vehicles top in a peak hour, so not really going to significantly impact the results at all that I found. I also used the latest versions of the softwares and methodologies that are out there, so some of these studies were done several years ago, and there has been some updates to it, so there could be some differences in the results because of that. Generally speaking, the results I found is that I looked at 3 alternatives: the existing condition, which is with all 3 all-way stops, removal of the all-way stops at Milwaukee and Wells Street, and keeping the all-way stop at Main Street, and then the removal of the all-way stops at Wells and Milwaukee and converting Main to a traffic signal. They all, in general, work. The issues that are out there would be that with 3 all-way stops, obviously the cars on Genesee Street are going to be stopping 3 times as they do today. So that sometimes can lead to, though the distances are pretty short between the intersections, to people drag racing between, but with that short distance, I don't see a lot of that. You just might get, you get more noise from the acceleration and deceleration of the vehicles. The benefit of that alternative is it's probably the safest one for pedestrians because it allows them the priority to cross at all 3 of the intersections. And I know you saw my first email to response to Alderman Price, where I basically recommended either the all 3 all-way stops or the all-way stop at Main Street only. I did not recommend the traffic signal at this time, as it's not needed right now. It would create extra maintenance and costs for the city that we don't really need or can afford, maybe we say that. It's something that could be needed in the future, but it all kind of depends on how the rest of the city develops over time and whether that is. And if a signal is needed at some point, then the other all-way stops really will have to go away because signals and all-way stops basically are 2 completely opposite forms of traffic control. Signals rely on platooning of vehicles from one intersection to another, whereas the all-way stop separates them. And having a signal in the middle of 2 all-way stops is going to be will not work. I can just say that straight out. So then Alderman Price asked me afterwards for a recommendation. I did give him a response. I will qualify it that it's that much more, and I picked the removal of the 2 all-way stops at Wells and Milwaukee mostly just because it would improve the overall flow of traffic through downtown. That was really the only rationale behind it. It's not a strong, the all 3 all-way stops would work just as well. The one negative of removing the all-way stops is that you will have a fairly poor level of service on Wells Street in the PM peak coming from the east side here, trying to turn at the intersection. A level service E was found for that, which is getting into the zone of what you don't really want. Otherwise, there were a couple level service Ds. I heard, Tim, I think I heard you might have mentioned that being an issue. They're barely level service Ds at Main Street in the PM peak. I would not be worried about those at all. In general, in the Milwaukee area, level service D is considered acceptable operations you don't really do anything to fix that. So I would not be worried about that at all, but it's like by a couple seconds into that threshold. So it's not a big deal from that perspective. So I guess overall explain what I did. If you got questions for me or anything, I'd be happy to answer them.
I noticed some comments about pedestrian traffic too. Did you have any thoughts on the different alternatives, or any suggestions on what the impact or what would be best for pedestrian flow and safety?
Generally,
Is there a difference?
The current condition is probably the best for pedestrian flow and safety overall because they get the primary, basically the people at the stop sign are supposed to wait for the pedestrians to cross. It will also, unless someone runs the stop sign, they're going to be stopping at a very slow speed, if anything, when they're starting up. So the likelihood of them hurting a pedestrian of any significance or anything in that situation is pretty minimal. When if they're going through at 30 miles an hour, there's a higher risk to the pedestrian at that point if they do get hit.
See, Art, on the traffic, as traffic increases, and obviously with 2 office buildings and a number of new dwellings, we're going to have increased traffic. Do you normally recommend more stop signs or fewer stop signs as traffic increases?
That depends on the nature of the traffic. If you have roads that this traffic is trying to enter from and they're stopped and the mainline traffic isn't, it might become more difficult for them to enter onto the main road. So for example, if we didn't have stop signs Milwaukee Street and they were coming from the grain down Milwaukee Street, the more traffic you build up on there, the harder time they'll have to get onto Genesee Street without having to always stop there. But in some cases, if they're coming down the main road, it's better for them not to have it. So we're depending on where they're coming from and, again, the nature of the traffic. If it's a general peak hour type traffic, like an office building generates, or if it's more of like, I'm trying to think, some of the specialty retail shops we have here, which are more kind of midday type, they're not going to impact the traffic volumes or the situations that's out here at all versus what an office building would.
Yeah. The new grain building, I understand how many employees are going to be in that building. Do you know that, Kent?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Isn't it like 100 or 200 or much less than that?
Maybe Tom recalls better.
Nobody knows that right now because the tenants have not all been confirmed.
Okay. No, the only point was if it's more of a 9 to 5 office building, you give a big rush at 8 o'clock and a big rush at 5 o'clock. How can we accommodate those rushes?
And that's what I analyzed is in general those rushes.
Okay.
So I looked at the AM peak and the PM peak. So I think 7:30 to 8:30 or 7 to 8. I can't remember the exact hour in the AM, and the PM peak was 4:30 to 5:30, I believe.
Okay. I'll take your word.
Is there anything about the traffic study that accounts for the types of trucks that will go through? 'Cause, I mean, we did put a ban on through trucking of the larger, heavier vehicles. I thought this is just theoretically, or I shouldn't say theoretically, speculative, right? That when you see a long truck go through downtown, it seems to occupy more than just like a car and a half or 2 cars. It seems like the disruption is worth like 4 or 5 cars going through because of how much space and time it takes to go through the intersection. Do you think that was a big positive for downtown traffic to get rid of those, or is that just an incremental so what?
From a semi-truck perspective, I mean, it'll help in that phrase. It's basically the equivalent of 3 cars in terms of space it occupies at an intersection. The fact that we don't have a lot of them to begin with overall, I mean, my understanding is mostly dump trucks coming through here versus semi-trucks. The amount of impact isn't going to be great.
Okay.
Because in a lot of cases, semi-trucks, delivery trucks aren't coming during the peak hours as well. They're coming in the off-peaks more because the businesses don't want them there in their peak times as well. So I don't anticipate it'll have a major impact one way or the other. I mean, it's a benefit just because there are slower accelerators than motor vehicle cars are in that. So it will help the smoothness of the operations, not having them there.
All right.
Maybe you recall or maybe you don't, but I don't think those traffic studies would have taken that into consideration because we hadn't passed that yet.
Correct. They had truck percentages in there. I might even be able to see if they're on.
Yeah, I didn't know. I just, generally speaking, I mean, it's whatever benefit it is, it wasn't realized in that traffic
No,
study.
no, I
That's all
don't
I'm
believe,
trying to
yeah, in fact, I hadn't,
confirm.
I wasn't fully aware that we had forbidden them when I did the analysis, otherwise I would have, I don't know exactly which trucks are allowed now, so trucks are classified based on, once you get to a single unit, which is like your typical box truck is considered a truck at that point. I don't know if we prohibited those as well, but I mean, we still are, I'm assuming we
We'll
have.
get you a copy of the ordinance.
I assume we have delivery trucks still coming into town for restaurants and
If
stuff
your
like that.
Yeah, we don't, yeah, if your destination is downtown, you're allowed.
Okay,
What you're not allowed is
to go through.
basically cut through.
Okay.
Art, with your analysis, and thank you again, with the three-way stop scenario, is it your opinion that that the three-way stop being the most ideal, or potentially the most ideal, would be at its maximum or near its maximum with the current trip generation from the St. John's development and the grain?
No, it wouldn't be at its maximum yet. It's, what I would say is we're getting to the point where a lot more growth we're going to start seeing issues, but I don't think we're there
You
yet.
said a lot more
Yeah,
growth.
that's what is a lot?
Well,
It could,
I mean, if
a lot
we-
more growth, what, quantify?
If we see an extra 100 to 200 vehicles going through town during the peak periods, we'll start to see some negative impacts because of that. Because always stops do kind of have a max, I don't remember the exact, it differs based on the intersection, but at a point, they do start to fail, and when they do fail, they fail dramatically pretty quickly. You'll start to see really long queues. I've been told that we have some pretty long queues southbound that get up by the post office. I don't know my analysis didn't show that, but it could be just weird situations that are causing that when it does happen. The only way you could probably figure that out, we'd have to put a camera out or something and actually look at it to see what's causing it. It could be just the same situation where a lot of people are crossing the crosswalk at that time because there was some event going on and people just couldn't go across. It could be something that simple. But I mean, if we got a lot of developable land in the far north side of town, northwest side of town here, when that all builds out, that could put us in a situation where we gotta change it. And
100 to 200 more trips, which is next, vehicles.
I'm saying vehicles in a,
Well,
kind of an
aren't
interaction.
vehicles trips?
Yes, no, a trip is actually, a trip in a lot of times can be, one vehicle will make 2 trips to go to a place and then leave. That's considered 2 trips, when it's only 1 vehicle, though. I know, it's a.
But it's still a
That's
vehicle.
why the reports are 67 pages long.
I'm just trying to look at, for future development.
So when we get to that next level, what would be the suggested change at that point?
Well, if it gets to the point where the always stops start to fail, particularly Main Street, then the signal is really the only option we have left there. The other items, we had Jerry McDougall come to our Public Works Committee meeting suggesting roundabouts, which there really isn't the room here to do that. And there aren't a whole lot of other alternatives other than there's these mini traffic circles you could try to throw in there, but that does make it more difficult for trucks and other things that are trying to get here to go through. So realistically speaking, the 3 alternatives I looked at are really all we have, in my opinion, in my professional opinion, that we have as alternatives. But at some point, if the volumes get to that point, it may be a signal at Main and remove the other always stops is the only alternative that will work, but we definitely aren't there yet.
Okay, thank you.
Art, when we're talking about potentially being sensitive to 100 or 200 more vehicles as being kind of a breaking point, if we were to look at options to remove some of the stop signs and say go with just a single stop sign alternative, wouldn't there be the potential that that could draw more traffic to Genesee Street, people that are now using 83 or Sawyer Road because they don't like to have to stop and start to get through on Genesee Street, and that there's a benefit to it taking a little time to get through downtown?
It's possible. Without having information on where people are coming and going to, where their origin and destinations are, it's really hard for me to give you a definitive on that, because what you're talking about is more regional traffic. people who are living north of 16 or south of 94, and they're trying to get, diagonal across probably, going like from Okachie to, let's say, Waukesha. And is it better to go down Sawyer Road, C, or 83? Yes, those people, the always stops probably would discourage them from coming through. The question is would that even still be would that be the fastest route by eliminating these, or do those other routes inherently just have other benefits that they're going to take, higher posted speed limits and just less traffic in general?
So if I hear you from a regional perspective, maybe you don't want to be perceived as the easiest place to get through because you'll inevitably draw more traffic because you've made it easier.
You might.
Well, this is probably the third time we've talked about traffic downtown in an analysis sort of ways in the last 15 years. I expect I'll just set the calendar for 3 or 4 more and see, realizing the reality. I know from my just cursory experience and seeing the traffic reports done before and then after, and then realizing the actual reality after the developments have occurred around town. They're really close. I mean, it's a very, very solid predictor. And seeing that it's just, everyone who's asked me about, well, what about all the traffic? It's like, and all the buildings that have just gone on, I'm like, well, it's not going to make traffic better, right? But so this gives us a good benchmark to see how close to reality this is when we're 18 months from now, when all these things are occupied and other things come true. And we can, I think people will find that 15 minutes when the level D service is there, they'll understand exactly what that is, and it's not the end of the world. But anyways, I appreciate it a lot. It helps answer a long-standing question, and that is, what about the traffic when we add new buildings? And we'll see where it goes, right?
And what those users end up being is the key to a lot of it. Could do a comparison to Strip Mall at Hillside in 83, the fancy one there. When that first opened, it was all very intense retail uses, and the parking lot was always packed full. You could never find a place to park. Now it's been turned over, and it's all very low-impact retail uses. You can pull in there and park almost anywhere you want. So depending on what ends up on the first floor of the grain over here is going to have a significant impact on what we see for traffic volumes down here. As an example, the more restaurants, bars, that kind of peak hour attractor would increase the traffic versus if it's more of the, the retail shops and, places that people not necessarily shopping at every day. It's more of a comfort shopping or whatever.
So far, there's some good harmony. We've got a breakfast place and a brewery. I mean, I think they're going to serve 2 different people, I hope, or the same person
Well, if
in
the
the morning
breakfast
and
place
the
is
night.
not open at dinner, that's a big one right there.
Well, time will tell.
Well, thank you for all your time on Public Works. You're an invaluable person out
you.
there, so thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Art.
Thanks, Art.
Okay, we're going to move on to Mayor's Report. A, accept resignation of Lewis Crowley from the citizen member position on the Board of Review, term to expire 4/24.
Move to accept Ms. Crowley's resignation.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention passes. Okay, B, accept resignation of Michelle Lutke from the citizen member resident position on the library board, term to expire 4/2025.
So move. Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions passes. Okay, C, confirm appointment of Lewis Crowley to the citizen member position on the Park and Rec Commission Tree Board, vacated by Tom Scheffler, term to expire 4/2026.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions passes.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, new business. A, discussion and possible action regarding the license agreement, the point crossing of Delafield Condominium Association, the city of Delafield allowing the condominium association to plant trees and decorative grasses in the Main Street public right-of-way, with the condominium association being responsible for all costs of landscaping, installation, and maintenance. Mr. Hafner.
Yes, the condominium association approached me and indicated that they would like to put in this landscaping buffer for the condos on Main Street. And this type of, the plantings are in the public right-of-way, so this type of licensing agreement is appropriate for establishing responsibilities moving forward. And so I would recommend approval, and I do believe someone is here in the audience in case there are any questions of the condo owners.
I will not turn down landscaping. I'll make a motion to approve the license agreement for Point Crossing.
A second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank you for
very
waiting.
much. Okay, we'll move on to 10B, discussion possible action regarding the proposed First Amendment to the Developers Agreement by and between 705 Genesee Street LLC and the City of Delafield. Mr. Hafner again.
When the developers agreement was written, kind of looking in hindsight, I don't think it was anticipated that the construction would really be completed in two phases with two separate buildings. And so in that agreement, it identified different milestones that needed to be completed before any occupancies are granted. The developer is ready to grant some occupancies to some tenants, but there are some things that in strict accordance with the developers agreement aren't completed yet that would prohibit granting occupancy. So we are recommending this amendment, which makes certain items required prior to granting any occupancies in the second building, but allows occupancies in the first building. And some of those things are like finished landscaping, installing the brick paver crosswalk along Dopkins Street, providing as-built drawings and things like that. So I would recommend approval of the First Amendment to the Developers Agreement. And there is someone from Hendricks in the audience if there are any questions.
I move that we approve the amendment to the developer agreement for 705 Genesee Street.
I'll second.
All righty, is there any discussion?
Yeah, the only question I had is all of the things that were proposed, has all of that happened on the first building? Like you're talking about for the occupancy to happen in the first building, but are all of the things that were asked of them, is that all completed in the first?
No, like, so for example, the landscaping around the first building is not complete just because of the timing of the year and whatnot.
Okay.
So those will be completed here in the next month or two. Those things will be happening. But they do have tenants that are ready to take occupancy. Well, they were ready to take occupancy a long time ago, but they're ready to take occupancy right now.
June 1st, 2023.
So I'm sorry, just so I'm clear, what was the purpose of restricting those things in the first place then because if the point is that it's because the second building isn't finished, I mean, that seems irrelevant to the points that you're talking about now.
Yeah, so the occupancy permits of the second building still provide us with the leverage of saying, hey, we've got something that we're holding before this stuff gets done.
Okay.
And like I said before, I think that developer's agreement was really written not anticipating that there would be two phases of construction, that both buildings would be built together, and that wasn't the case.
Okay, so the purpose was not that the occupants weren't stepping over unfinished landscaping, it was just the leverage to make sure it gets done?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
They're highly motivated to finish.
Oh, right, I just want to make sure we're not, like,
Yeah,
the reason
no,
we said they couldn't occupy
good
is because
question.
we don't want them walking over construction and that.
Yeah, we don't want them to prioritize planting
Yeah.
junipers versus finishing the brick.
Okay. Thank you, I just wanted to make sure that was, thank you.
Good.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we are moving on to C, discussion possible action regarding the City of Delafield's intent to create a railroad quiet zone that includes the Vedelson Road Railroad crossing. Mr. Hafner, if you can give us an update on that?
Yes, one major update is we realized as part of the process, because the City of Delafield is on one side of the tracks and the Village of Shaniqua is on the other side of the tracks, that the only way to create a quiet zone is for both municipalities to approve of it. There's no opportunity to establish a quiet zone if only one of the two communities want it. So I have coordinated with the Village of Shaniqua. They had it on their agenda this past week. However, their administrator was out ill and their board tabled it. So they're not going to take that up again until May 13th. But in the meantime, we do need to approve it. And there is a notice of intent in your packet that you would be approving, and that is the council approving to move forward with the notice of intent. At the beginning of the process, I had been told by people at the DOT, both state and federal, that typically in this process, there are people that are opposed to creating a quiet zone. There are people that like the train horn. There apparently are people that sometimes buy houses in close proximity to railroad crossings because they like it so much. And as you heard this evening, there was one gentleman that lives nearby that opposes the creation of the quiet zone. But if the council would like staff to continue moving forward with the creation of the quiet zone, it would be appropriate for you to approve the city's intent to create the quiet zone tonight.
And according to the letter, it doesn't sound like there's any financial burden on us to do this, or is it? What would that be?
The city is extremely lucky, in a very fortunate position. The DOT and the CP Rail did a combined project a few years ago throughout Waukesha County and upgraded, I think it was 14 different crossings, including our crossing. Prior to us, the Village of Heartland created quiet zones, the Village of Oconomowoc Lake created quiet zones, the City of Oconomowoc created quiet zones, and they all had to make significant investments into the crossings in order to do that. I've been told something along the magnitude of about $50,000 per crossing, but that's in place for us, and the only construction left for us to do is to put 2 signs up that says no train horn.
I think it's important to realize that that's the only crossing between Heartland and Oconomowoc that isn't quiet zone. And the magnitude of the sound of those horns pretty much defeats the purpose of all the other quiet zones. So I think it would make it only fair to our neighbors and the people in that area that we pass this intent, so it can be quiet all the way from Heartland through Oconomowoc.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second that.
You got that, Molly?
I just have that Price made a motion, seconded by Henry to approve. I just have that Price made a motion, seconded by Henry to approve the notice of intent to create a rural quiet zone that includes the Vettleson Railroad crossing. Is that appropriate?
That's fine. Okay. That's fine.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Just real quickly, to give you an idea of the time frame, once Shaniqua approves it, and there's all indications are that they'll likely approve it, then we have to send out the notice of intent to the appropriate stakeholders. We need to give them 60 days to comment. Once we get any comments back, we need to address those comments. Once comments are addressed, then we have to send out what's called a notice of establishment. And once we send out the notice of establishment, then we can, then the quiet zone would become effective 21 days later.
So in the big picture, this year?
Yeah, so before the delay with Shaniqua, I was thinking best case scenario is late July, but now we're probably looking at late August.
Okay.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much for working on that.
Yep.
Okay, D, discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 2024-02, an authorized resolution to apply for outdoor recreation grant funding for the Genesee Street Recreation Trail project. I'm not sure who has this.
This is me again. So in our 5-year capital improvement plan, we do have a further extension of the Genesee Street Trail from Carriage Hills to the northern limits of the city in the schedule for construction next year in 2025. There's a significant grant opportunity available right now, the stewardship grant through the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Those applications are due by May 1st, and one of the requirements is to pass this resolution, and SEH is working on completing the grant application for us as we speak.
Move to approve Resolution 2024-02.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
That was Schaefer on the second, correct? Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to E, discussion and possible action on the updated memorandum of understanding between all municipalities participating in the suburban critical incident team and provides emergency tactical and support services and high-risk incidents in the city of Delafield and all participating municipalities. Chief, it sounds like you have the floor.
Yes, thanks for having me. The full memorandum of understanding was in your packets. The only real change we're looking at here is some clarifying language in how expenses are shared between the municipalities. The short story is if we send an officer to assist another agency, we're still going to be paying that officer's salary, whether it's overtime, standard rate, whatever it is. However, if that officer is injured or killed during that assistance, then the state statute takes over and the requesting agency would be responsible for workers' comp and other related expenses. So day to day, we all pay our own officers, but if a tragedy occurs, then the requesting agency is the one responsible for that. That's been the practice for years. However, the language in the MOU was unclear on what a requesting and an aiding agency was, and so we cleaned that up. That's it.
Do all the municipalities involved have an equal number of officers trained in this isn't a particular equipment, this is an incident, right? So we're going to respond regardless.
Correct. We have one tactical operator, one a drone pilot, essentially, technology operator, and then we had one crisis negotiator on the team. To put it in perspective, the city of Brookfield is a member of this team as well. They have significantly more operators and personnel assigned to this. So it's really based on the size of your agency on what you can provide.
Okay. Thanks.
What's the frequency utilization of this skit?
The skit, for our city, we utilize it very infrequently, once or twice a year. However, in other agencies, they're deployed probably once a month. Their main deployment is usually high-risk warrants, so they're not responding to hostage situations and things like that all the time. It's usually the service of high-risk warrants.
I know we've had a lot of discussion over this in the past, and I know in the back of people's minds or comments that have been made before is, you know, how many resources do we have to give compared to how many resources we actually get in return? And, you know, I think everybody understands the bigger picture on that, and sometimes it's just hard to justify spending the money to do it all, but so I know there's discussions that take place back and forth on it, so.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you think it's something that we should participate in, correct?
Absolutely, 100% worthwhile. It's a service that you pray you never need it, but when you do, it's there for you. I've overseen operations with them, being our tactical team here in the city, and it's an invaluable resource. And having members of our department on the team, having the influence with the team as being a board member, I'm the treasurer for the SCIT board. We're integrally involved in the organization and just making sure everything's running the way the participating agencies want it, as opposed to relying on a county level team.
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding update for the Suburban Critical Incident Team.
Second.
All righty, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, F, discussion possible action regarding the process for an appointment and/or special election to fill the District 7 aldermanic seat that will become vacant upon Alderman Eicher's resignation as District 7 alderperson prior to acceptance of the City of Delafield mayoral seat.
Okay, we just went through this about a year ago. So I just updated some information, made it a little more pertinent to this particular situation. So in the past, we've dealt with this. We basically have three options. One option is to order a special election. Another option is to appoint an alderperson to the vacant seat. And then the final option would be to leave the seat vacant until the next election for the office, which is in the spring of 2025. In the past, the council has either appointed or gone the special election route. Last year, it was a special election for Aldermanic District 4, which the resignation occurred in a manner to allow for the timely election with the spring Aldermanic seat anyway. At this point, we're looking at pretty much being in a timeline that would require us to hold the special election concurrently with the fall election. So that would be the primary in August, with the actual election occurring in November. This is kind of statutorily limited. If you don't hold it kind of within a small window outside of the normal election time frames, then you're basically required to hold the election concurrently, or the special election concurrently with whatever general election is occurring at that time. So let me just see what else I've got. So I guess at this point, if the council did want to go the route of a special election, we have between, I think, last week's Saturday and then May 13th to order that special election, so we could create a order, which we did for the District 4. I could have that ready for tomorrow if that's something that the council wanted to direct me to do. Alternatively, you could discuss the process for how you would want to move forward with an appointment, if that would be the option. Otherwise, if you weren't ready to make the determination on a special election, you could, if it came out between discussion today and tomorrow, we could always call a special meeting to make that order if that was something that was your choice. Any other questions or anything that wasn't addressed in the memo? Okay.
I'd suggest that we don't consider option 3, which would be to leave it vacant till spring. And I don't want to go into a campaign speech, but I've been a resident of District 7 for 25 years. There's not it's not a particularly hotbed of political activity as far as local politics go. So I've enjoyed almost entirely during the last 7 elections being uncontested. So I think if we held it out to, I think we'd be more likely to get a good candidate or possible candidates if the appointment process was pretty straightforward, and that'd give them an opportunity to someone, he or her, to get their feet wet kind of for 7 to 8 months and see if they want to try it again in April. Going through an election process while this super fun fall election is going to be going on might not be everyone's cup of tea, and they might not want to be associated with everything that's going on with an election this fall. So I mean, as a resident there and in that, I'd recommend on behalf of my constituents, we go ahead with opening up to see, take applications for appointments. You know, if we get 4, that'll be fun. Hopefully we get 1 really great one, or maybe 2, and then we can decide. We've done it before. There was once where we voted on 2 candidates, and it was like a really public job interview. So and it went fine. So that's my recommendation, is to open it up for appointments.
I agree with Alderman Eicher.
I agree also. I think from a timing perspective, we don't want to keep that seat open until the November election. We'd really rather have somebody representing that district as soon as possible, and we can certainly know what it takes to be a good alder, and so we should be qualified to make that selection process.
Yeah, that'd be a long time to leave it open. It's too long.
Yeah, Tim, what would be the process for finding these people?
Let them know it exists.
Just getting on the
I mean,
phone?
it'd be, well, I mean, some people watch these meetings, not thousands. There's 8 or so in my district, probably. Maybe one of them will step up, but no, it would go on our website, I'm assuming, Molly? How would we broadcast
Do a
this?
notify me type thing?
That would be at the direction of the council, but notify me, Facebook, any of those public venues, or not venues, social media items that we have would be options.
And interested candidates are probably the kind of people that are reading these things and getting notify me, and
And
I
maybe
agree.
already serving on a committee.
yeah.
So I'll make a motion to, let me copy the other motion. I'll make a motion to have applications for Aldermanic District 7 due by May 19th, to fill the vacancy left by Alderman Eicher. And that's where I'll stop. Any other suggested?
You might want to do that date a few days earlier so we can possibly get names or documents into the packet. Maybe May 15th?
Strike May 19th, May 15th.
Second.
Could you read that back when you, just so I can hear it again?
To proceed with applications to be submitted for the Aldermanic District 7, for those applications to be due by May 15th, 2024, to fill the vacancy.
Okay, are we saying for the remainder of the term? Then, are we agreeing to that? Okay, I just want to be clear that it's not, we're not going to do a special election. Okay, thank you.
Would those interviewers be at a council meeting or a special meeting?
We'd then put them on the May 20th council agenda to have those interviews.
Okay.
They're not private, so if there's 2 or 3 people, they're right there. It works.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes. Okay, approval of the vouchers.
Move to approve the voucher list.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, passes. Okay, on to number 11, report of city official, city administrator, anything else?
No report this evening.
City clerk.
So I provided some voting statistics in the packet from the election. Of note, previously this election had been a pretty large turnout in 2020. About a 60% turnout, 61%. I was expecting that initially. We did not end up having that big of a turnout. It was about our average spring turnout, which was 30%. I'm not surprised, kind of in the events that came up to the election, but I was hoping for a larger turnout to kind of get a better, I guess, dry run on the council chambers as a new location. Overall, I think it went well, but we did not at any point really have any kind of a line, thanks to Badger Books, but so we didn't have a a test to see how we would be channeling that traffic if we had a longer line kind of out the door. So we're going to have to probably address that on the fly during the presidential, because I do expect that to occur. We can't get, like at the gubernatorial election, we were looking at 30 to 45-minute wait times kind of at the longest. So I expect there to be maybe an hour-ish max for the presidential, hopefully, fingers crossed. But, we're going to have to find a place for those people to queue up. That being said, I remind myself that there are many establishments. We were fortunate with Christ the King that they had that long kind of entrance into where we were going. But there are many voting locations that did not have any sort of indoor queue. So I think we're going to try to do our best to accommodate as many people inside as possible. But we won't be able to get everybody. And, in a lot of ways, we are still better off than a lot of other places because of the Badger books and our ability to at least have some kind of indoor queue. So I don't know if anybody else heard anything about that election or had any questions related to the statistics that I've provided, but. Okay, then I don't have anything else to report at this time.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, City Treasurer, I'll refer to you the information that's in the packet to report. And then D, council requests for future agenda items. Do we have any tonight? Doesn't look like it, so if you have any in the future, just reach out to staff and get it on the agenda. Okay, I'll refer you to the packets for correspondence, number 12. Number 13, special order of business, recognition of Mayor Kent Atwell for outstanding contributions to the city of Delafield.
All right, here we go, Kent. We have a plaque for you, and I'll come around for a picture opportunity in a second, but this is for Mayor Kent Atwell in recognition and appreciation for nearly 22 years of dedicated public service, including 6 years as mayor, 2018 to 2024, 3 years as District 1 alderperson, 16 years on the Lake Welfare Committee, 11 years as chairman of that, 13 years on the Plan Commission, 3 years on Police Commission, and chairman of the County Highway C Reconstruction Committee. Thank you for your service. Oh, I'll finish this up. Thank you for your service. And carpe diem. And there's a quote here. There's a quote here from famous person. There's no greater challenge and there's no greater honor than to be in public service. That's Condoleezza Rice.
Nice.
So again, thanks.
Nice. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being mayor. Everybody keep up the good hard work. Okay, we'll move on to number 14, special order of business. Accept resignation of Tim Eicher from the District 7 aldermanic seat in order for Alderman Eicher to accept the elected position of the City of Delafield mayor.
I'm not going to make my own motion. I quit, but
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Tim Eicher from District 7.
I'll second.
What if we don't let them?
Is there any discussion? No discussion, you sure? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, number 15, special order of business, ceremonial swearing in of Tim Eicher as mayor of the city. Let's do that again. Special order of business, ceremonial swearing in of Tim Eicher as mayor of the Delafield with the oath of office administered by outgoing mayor Kent Atwell, followed by the ceremonial passing of the gavel.
I've never seen a gavel here.
it's got it right there.
Well, wait a minute.
He never banged it.
Never used it.
He brought it, but never used it.
I'm coming down here. Yeah, I got a pen. Okay. I, Tim Eicher, having been elected to the office of the mayor of the city of Delafield,
I, Tim Eicher, after being elected to the city of,
mayor of the city of
mayor of
Delafield,
the city of Delafield,
I made it too long for him.
swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully, impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of your ability.
and will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations. Now we have the traditional passing of the gavel. And as was mentioned, in 6 years, I've never used it.
I'll use it.
The idea is if you're disrespectful to them, they have justification to be disrespectful back to you. So maybe you'd think about that.
I'll be fine.
Okay. Okay. Announcements of matters for possible closed session. Okay, a motion convened into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, more specifically regarding the performance and compensation of the chief of police. The council will convene into open session after completion of the closed session to consider the balance of the agenda. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Call.
We need a roll call.
Henry.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
Valdy.
Aye.
Wilkin.
Aye.
Grimmer.
Aye.
Price.
Aye.
Eicher.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's more or less going to bring our activities to an end tonight. We'll be in closed session, then we'll come out and make one vote if it's needed, and that'll be the end of the meeting.
mics back on if you think you're gonna
Need them. You're gonna need them because I need to roll call vote us. Okay, we are back and live. Okay, we're gonna move on to motion to convene into open session.
So moved.
Second.
At 9:34. Okay, Henry,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Baldi,
Aye.
Wilkins,
Aye.
Grammer,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Iker.
Aye.
Okay. So no action is going to be taken after the closed session. So therefore, since there's no further business, we are now adjourned at 9:35. Thank you, everyone.